ESPN 1410 Wing AM brings you 1410 Wing Live. Follow along on Facebook, on Twitter, even on our ESPN Dayton YouTube channel, and at wingam.com. We're everywhere. The biggest interviews with the biggest local and national guests. It's 1410 Wing Live with Justin Kinner.
All right, everybody, welcome in. It is 1410 Wing Live, presented by Arrowhead Tax Service. And before we get into our interview, let me give a shout out to our sponsor one more time, Arrowhead Tax Service. Arrowhead Tax Accounting and Payroll Service in New Carlisle is open and here to serve. Call Michael Maxwell at 937-543-5770 or make an appointment online at arrowheadtaxservice.com. Again, Justin Kinner with you here on 1410 Wing Live, and with everything going on surrounding the Big Ten and Ohio State and the efforts from Big Ten parents around the country, as well as the Justin Fields hashtag We Want to Play petition that has garnered just under almost 300,000 signatures. So much going on, which is why I wanted to bring on our next guest, Austin Ward with Lettermen Row. Austin, welcome in, man. How are you?
Busy, Justin, but plenty of time for you, my friend.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Thank you. And look, I mean, obviously, you're getting a lot of the same things thrown your way. Now, there's so many different rumors and sources out there, and everyone has a different take of what's going on behind the scenes. And that's very tough to figure out exactly what's going on. You have more connections than I do, obviously, which is why I'm going to you. With where we are at right now, with everything going on, you have the Justin Fields petition. You have the parents who have stormed Normandy, basically, who have gone to the Big Ten headquarters in Illinois and Chicago. Where are we at right now? I mean, obviously, we know the end game of what they're trying to accomplish, but how realistic is it in trying to get Big Ten football back this fall?
I would say very unrealistic. And the people that I've talked to that would be involved in the decision at multiple schools, not just Ohio State, have said that the odds of the presidents changing their mind and reinstating the season would be zero. They don't even leave the door open at all. Now, that's not a prediction going forward. That's just where we are at this very moment. I would love for that number to change, but I don't think that the decisions that drove them to make that call or the situation on the ground has changed really for them, other than the outcry from players and coaches and demanding more answers. I don't think they're going to give in to that pressure that, there's now saliva testing, which is really a big deal that could potentially allow them to play in the spring. Maybe it would have been a big deal for September 26th, but the presidents made up their mind for what they view are good reasons, and I don't think that Justin Fields, as powerful as that voice has been, 5 or 6 different schools with their families asking, schools are about to have, some of them already have their kids back on campus. You see what's happened in North Carolina and Notre Dame. I think that's really got the school president's attention. They made that decision, and I don't think that they really have great incentive in their mind to go back and change it. I'm not saying that they made the right call. I think delay was the right call. But I think what I'm being told about for the presidents is that they feel like they made the right call.
So presidents. Austin. We're sorry. You have the commissioner of the Big Ten who's getting a lot of the finger pointing. Some pointers, some others, and those people are not happy right now. Kevin Warren. So you said you brought up the president. Who's more responsible for this ultimate decision? Is it Kevin Warren or is it the president? Who's more to point the finger at in regards to why the season is not kicking off while the likes of the ACC, Big 12 and SEC are about to do here in the coming weeks?
Yeah, I would say that there is some blame to go around for both. I think the decision to cancel, postpone, however they want to phrase it, that's driven by the presidents. And I know that they've said that they didn't take an official vote. My understanding is that wasn't necessary, that the majority understanding was that they needed to proceed with that way, or they wouldn't have made such a drastic decision. For transparency's sake, I wish that they had taken a head count and got that on the record so that we all knew where every school president stood, because they've not all, Christina Johnson hasn't actually even started yet as full-time president for Ohio State, which is, crazy that all this is happening, at this time without her around in Columbus. But so from that perspective, I think the decision, you need to talk to the presidents. Now, the way that it was implemented, the timing, the fact that Ohio State practiced Monday and Tuesday of last week, after I was told that decision had already been made on that Sunday night call, the lack of explanation on Tuesday during his BTN interview the lack of a spring plan, the lack of clear focus on what they can and can't allow in the fall in terms of practices and workouts. Well, you can talk to Kevin Warren about that. We'd all like to. If you want to blame him for the implementation of that plan, have at it, because I think that there is some definite blame for him to go there. But in terms of actually making the cancellation, I think you have to look primarily at the school presidents.
A few weeks ago, well, back when the initial decision was made to pull the plug on the season, I know that they had come out and said that it's not a pulling the plug on the season per se, it's a postponement to the fall. In my opinion, I don't envision a fall season happening or a January winter season happening. I mean, was some of this a PR involved in regards to maybe softening the blow of saying, okay, it's less aggressive to say postponing the season to spring than it is to just say no football for 2020 or early 2021?
I think there's probably a lot of factors that go into that. And one of them is if you're going to have players, Joel Klatt brought up this potential loss of value lawsuit yesterday that players might file. Well, if you've still given them an opportunity to play in the spring, then that helps shield you from that sort of liability. I'm not saying that it's perfect, but I'm saying that, the Big Ten, when they're looking at their options, if you're going to deny maybe transfers to other schools that are trying to play in the fall, well, you say that they still had an opportunity to play in the spring. Maybe that keeps them from going for instant eligibility. A lot of the things that I'm talking about right now sound kind of gross, like that, it's to protect the Big Ten schools, maybe financially, to keep the rosters intact. And there are elements of this that are really unsavory, but I think that part of it's all designed with the fact that they believe the other conferences are going to have to cancel eventually. They thought that they would be on board with doing that last week, not just the Pac-12, and that everybody could move on to start planning for January and February, because they have hundreds of millions of dollars at stake, not just Ohio State, but every school across the country. So you want to try and have games to get your money back so you can fund the rest of the athletic department. You still deep down want to see as many players as possible playing this year. They have tons of incentive to do so that I don't think is just purely PR, but there are also 100 complications for trying to play in January.
It's kind of cold.
The Big Ten. I mean, it's cold. Yeah, you said it. You'd have to probably play in some domes, and you have to figure out practice schedules, because that you couldn't just start in January. Even if you started in March, you still have to start practice in January. So all these other things still are in play. It's really hard, but I get that people ask, well, it'd be really hard to play in the fall too. Why not just make that effort? I don't know. It's possible that they don't play in either season. And I think that presidents are willing to do that. And it's not what I want. Justin, I know it's not what you want, but we don't get to make that decision.
All right, we got Austin Ward, Lettermen Row, covers the Ohio State Buckeyes with us here on 1410 Wing Live, presented by Arrowhead Tax Service. With that being said, I mean, we have a bunch of questions and we don't have a lot of answers, and I feel like some of the coaches don't either. If you're Ryan Day, I think you retweeted this earlier. James Franklin was talking from Penn State, talking about you only get 12 hours a week with your team now if you're not playing the Big Ten and Pac-12. What's next for Ryan Day in the Buckeyes? How do you approach this? How do you you're going to have players who are maybe not as motivated now. It's depressing to be, every time you put a helmet on or pads on, you're thinking, why am I doing this now? I'm doing this while they're doing this to at least play on Saturdays. It's so tough for coaches to be able to kind of gather the troops' morale basically moving forward.
And that's why, since last Tuesday, when some of those coaches walked out in the parking lot and, I just tried to, it was so fresh and raw for them. You didn't want to bother them too much, but they said they just need a plan, because if you can get to these players and tell them this is when you're going to play, this is when you're going to practice. Like, these guys are trained for that. They love the opportunity to just go practice and lift weights. Like, that's how they got to this place in the first spot. So that's all they want, is something that they can tell the players so that they can go execute. The motivation part, you're right. I mean, it's going to be different for them. And if the other leagues somehow are able to play this fall, which I think is unlikely, even if they start, we'll see. That's another conversation. Then the motivation part does become a lot trickier, because Ohio State believed that it had one of the most talented teams that it has ever had, that it could win a national championship, and it won't be the same. But I think if you say, here's how you can get better the fall, you're going to play some games and maybe win the Big Ten in the spring. At least that's the plan at this point. And then you still have an opportunity for a lot of young guys that are going to be key in 2021 to win a national championship again. I think that can be done. It's not ideal, and I would never pretend otherwise. But from a coaching perspective, I know that all they really want is clarity on what they can do, because they believe that these high achieving athletes will embrace that as long as you tell them what they can do.
Last thing here, and I'll let you go. But so we already know the announcement was already made by Kevin Warren in the Big Ten. There's no fall football season. Now people's hopes are back up a little bit because there's so much activity and there's a lot of noise. There's petitions. There's parents who are outside the Big Ten headquarters. I mean, technically, they don't have to give a second answer. Should we expect a second? No, there's no football season. Should we expect a response? I mean, what's the next step for Justin Fields, this petition, and even the parents who are looking for answers in Chicago at the headquarters right now?
Yeah, I mean, Ohio State's parents, for example, and I believe Iowa's did the same. They asked for a response by, today when we're filming this show. So I don't know if they'll get it. I don't know if Kevin Warren is ever going to actually emerge and give real answers that he didn't provide last Tuesday. I know from Ohio State's perspective, when there's all this, wild rumors about what they can and can't do in the fall, they are content that they've already answered that question, that they pursued options last Wednesday. I reported that at Lettermen Row. They had conversations with, trying to play with Penn State and Nebraska, whether it was a scrimmage, whether it was a real game, what they could do in the fall, and they were told no. And then they put out a statement that said they're moving on to the spring. So they feel like they've covered their base. Kevin Warren hasn't done that, in my estimation, and certainly not to the satisfaction of Justin Fields or Ohio State's, families of the players. So I think that it's time for a press conference. It's time for them to reveal the specifics, talk about the presidents who made the decision. They have to do that. Otherwise, this is just going to continue. And if you're the Big Ten, you can't move on to the next step until everyone is satisfied with the one that you already took. They've lost right now the credibility to believe that they can guide them to the spring, and you have to get that back some way. So how will that look? I don't know, but it's time for Kevin Warren to figure it out.
So let's say Kevin Warren announces the second we hit stop on this interview. Kevin Warren comes out and just says, "Hey guys, I respect all your efforts, but there is no. We're sticking to our original plan. No football this fall." That puts Justin Fields in a weird spot. We could sit here and say, "Oh well, he's done. He can easily. I mean, his spot in the draft is solidified. He's a top 10 pick." But with that being said, how interested would he be in trying to play this fall? Transfer portal. I don't know what the rules are with that right now. Have we seen, if there's no Big Ten season, have we seen the last of Justin Fields in college? That's what I'll send you out with.
Yeah, I would have to imagine so. He's talked about the opportunity to potentially play in the spring. That would require help from the NFL. He would probably be getting a lot of advice from others telling him not to play. It'd be tricky to see what would happen there. I know from talking with Randy Wade that, Sean is a graduate. And if he really believed that the SEC was going to play and that it was worth his time, he could go transfer there tomorrow if there's a spot. But I think that most people find it unlikely that the SEC, no matter how entrenched they are in that position, that they can actually play. And I think when I was looking at just Ohio State and strongly favoring delay, the contact tracing is what's really going to wipe out, I think, a full season for anybody, because all you need is one test. And yeah, there's a bubble at North Carolina, but those presidents and those lawyers and doctors there, I don't think they're going to let that fly, because then you lose the argument for name, image, and likeness and the fact that they're not treated as differently than other students. That's a whole nother show that you and I would have to do right there. But if there's not college football in the fall for Ohio State, which I don't believe there will be, I currently have a hard time believing that Justin Fields will play again for the Buckeyes, which is an absolute shame for so many reasons. What he had in front of him, what the team could do, Heisman favorite, just watching him play any game, even if it's for nothing, was special. So that sucks, but I think that's probably what's going to happen.
All right, Austin Ward with Lettermen Row, covers Ohio State football. Good enough to join us here on 1410 Wing Live. Austin, tell everyone about Lettermen Row, the website, social media, contact, and everything along those lines.
Yeah, at Lettermen Row, lettermenrow.com. Still, no matter what happens, we'll keep covering Ohio State athletics all year round. Free, no subscription. Also follow us on our Lettermen Row YouTube channel, where we're doing daily videos as well, trying to keep up with as much as we can. And we appreciate all the support that people have from coming to read our stuff.
All right, good stuff. Austin, thanks so much, man. Much appreciated. Take care.
Anytime, Justin.
All right, that was Austin Ward with Lettermen Row. We'll have more of that interview coming up later on this afternoon on the Justin Kinner Show from 3 to 6 p.m. right here on Dayton's home of the Buckeyes, 1410 ESPN Radio. Thank you for hanging out with us this afternoon. We'll do it again later today. Thank you.